Hey everybody, my name is Alex. This is part 2. Now, in the first video, I broke down my particular background in Taekwondo, the school that I trained at where I received my belt, the injuries and medical issues that I have developed that keep me from training the way I used to, and how I started to look to change the way I train and to look at other methods and programs to try to work new techniques into what I'm doing just to keep things fresh. I outlined 3 programs in my previous video. So if you haven't watched that video yet, go ahead and take a look at it. And today on this video, I would like to talk to you a little bit about what it is that martial arts can contribute to your life. Now, for me, I was not a weightlifter. I was not a guy that liked to go out running and jogging. As a matter of fact, I was awful at both of those things. There was only ever one way that I ever kept even close to in shape. And folks looking at me will be able to tell that I'm kind of a good sized boy. However, if I stop training, what happens is I balloon. I get really heavy, really, really fast. And a good reason for that was that when I was training in Taekwondo, I was working construction around the same time, and I was eating a diet that an athlete would eat. And then when I stopped training because of the issues that I had, which for our viewers is 2 kinds of arthritis, it made it so that, I can't kick anything full steam or else I'll end up on crutches the next day. Um, I ended up having to train like most people train in Tai Chi because in Taekwondo we have a value called indomitable spirit. You don't give up training just because something comes up. There are Brazilian Jiu Jitsu guys who end up with broken legs and arms, they still train. There are guys that wind up with concussions, they still train. They change the way they do it so they can keep going. Now, after I got my belt, I moved to another state. And in that state, there is not nearly the same representation of schools that there were in Arizona, which led me to try some of the distance learning programs. It's become something of a fascination, really, because I come from traditional schools and a traditional mindset. And what I was looking to achieve in my training was a variety, new things to try, something where I could try them in a low key environment, just me training by myself. And I got in training with a couple guys who run a bare knuckle boxer thing out here. Um, and it really showed. I was in one of the fights and I hadn't trained in a long while. And I tried to brash out my training, and I ended up getting my butt kicked all over the place, and I deserved it because I hadn't been training for a while because I had essentially given up on my training. I had tried to keep going forward, and I learned 2 things: one, that I can still fight, and two, that I shouldn't give up training. So, for this entire decade since I got my belt and moved to another state, I have been training, but there was a good part of that where I stopped with 30-minute, hour long, 2 hour long classes, 5 6 days a week. And I put those aside because I didn't think I could do it anymore. I didn't think that I could get out there and compete. I didn't think that I could get out there and spar without winding up on crutches the next day. In martial arts, since I was a child, I had 2 goals in my life. I wanted to join the military and I wanted to earn a black belt. And I've had those goals since I was like 3 or 4 in my life. Now, because of my medical issues, if you can't run, you can't fight, and therefore the military wasn't able to accept me. But the martial arts has been a steady part of my life throughout my life. To some extent, I've always either been in training or thinking about training, and I love every minute of it. Those of you who know, I also do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I started with the program, the Gracie University program, until a instructor moved here from Denver, and he was a really good instructor by the name of Pat. And Pat took the lessons that I was learning and he provided the details that I wasn't able to learn from a distance. So my knowledge of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu greatly, enhanced, it expanded, it improved in quality and depth because now I had someone who was experienced. Now I could go from this distance learning format to learning from an instructor who actually had a legitimate lineage and succession. And that's not to cast aspersions on anyone. I mean, the Gracies are a world renowned lineage. What I'm saying is that I went from having a computer screen to a person that I could go to with questions. You're doing something, it doesn't work. What do you do about that? And I started looking at this whole martial arts deal a little bit different. For me, it became less about sparring and training and competing, and it became more about the qualities that martial arts teaches you. Now, in Taekwondo, we have the tenets of Taekwondo, which include such things as courtesy and integrity and self control. And all of these different, indomitable spirit, and all of these tenets of Taekwondo come together to try to encourage you to live a good life, a moral life. And they try to encourage you to keep training, to overcome obstacles in your life. And these are valuable things, things that will enhance your life. For those of you who are aware, on this channel, my primary way of life is as a Orthodox bishop for the Orthodox Patriarchate of Nations. And I put out a lot of videos related to my spirituality, my religious faith, and how I live that faith in my daily life. I try to address different topics. But I've been promising for a while that I would be turning out some of the videos on my martial arts side of life, hence this couple-part series that I'm putting out. Now, when you learn martial arts, you learn things like respect, you learn things like compassion, you learn things like charity, self-control, discipline. These are things that lend themselves very well to a Christian way of life, which is my worldview. And these lessons came to me at a time when I needed that kind of structure, at a time when I needed something to put in on. However, the martial arts are every bit as valid as those guys who get out and lift weights, those guys who get out and power walk, those guys who wrestle, those guys who really insert here, whatever it is that you do that you love. It's the same thing. From a Christian perspective, there's often a lot of concern because they see it as you're training to, be violent and be aggressive and all of that. However, I would like to point out a simple fact that if you have the ability to be violent and you choose to be peaceful, if you choose to follow Christ, then you're peaceful. If, however, you are incapable of protecting yourself, then you become harmless. And in the mind of most people, especially men, there's a huge difference. As a matter of fact, if you want to be humble, the first thing you have to do is satisfy your ego. You need to understand what your limits are and how far you can push those limits. And frankly, if you want to grow and expand what you can do, you need to know how you best learn and expand and establish a new limit. And for me, that was a lot of what martial arts did. It created a sense of camaraderie. It created a connection with other people that allowed me to get out of the house, to train, to try to keep my weight in check. It gave me a way to exercise. It gave me simple rewards, which is, the belt system is largely irrelevant because I've known white belts that can whip and black belts that are not very talented. And this is because a lot of guys try to speed through the curriculum and they try to study only when they're in school, and they realize that they're trying to achieve the treat at the end of the road instead of enjoying the actual path that it takes to get there. Um, if you're not training at home, first off, if you're only training in school, you're going to progress very slowly. Even if you take 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes, and you use that to run through a few basics every day, you will see more in the way of your own physical growth. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day to work on your balance, your coordination, and your skill, so that when you get into class, most professional fighters don't just train in fighting, they train in other aspects like weightlifting in an attempt to build up their muscles so that they can hit harder or move faster, or so that they can be more resilient. Body conditioning, they go for runs, they try to expand their breathing capacity, anything that will give them an edge when they compete. Now, the spiritual aspect of martial arts is usually called into question from a Christian perspective. And this is and has always been entirely optional. There are people who have taken the Christian faith and they've molded the martial arts to reflect their beliefs as a Christian. And that's perfectly acceptable. Now, the key is the metaphysical stuff. If you're and this is only if you're walking a Christian path. I understand that there are people watching my videos who might be from, say, a New Age path, or they might not have a religion, and they're just training because it's something to do, it's something to get out there, or maybe they enjoy the spiritual aspects. And I understand it, I respect it, legit. Now, the physical exercise has to be the primary benefit, because if you're someone like me, you gain weight fast. And that weight gain can make every other part of your life difficult. Because I don't just gain weight fast, I keep it on fast. And I need to be exercising regularly. And I never was able to really maintain my focus with something like weightlifting or jogging or, anything except the martial arts. And for a long time, I had lost faith in my own ability to fight. You got to get up. You got to get out. You got to exercise. You have to train. You have to build connections with other people. And that, more than anything, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to move the physical exercise to the number 2 slot, because the connections with other people are a huge benefit to who you are as a human being. You will find some of the nicest people you'll ever meet in boxing tournaments. You'll meet some of the nicest guys in gyms. You'll meet them on the mat training because they have nothing to prove. They know that they know how to fight, and if they don't know how to fight, they're learning how to fight. They have no ego to feed them. So those connections, not only between students, but between students and teachers, really enhance your life in a way that if you don't have them, that's something that you're always going to regret. And as I said, martial arts is not the only place you can gather these things from. There are guys who practice Japanese drumming, taiko drumming, like my family likes to do. And that training for them gives them the same kind of community and family spirit that my martial arts training gives to me. They derive a huge benefit from it. And regardless of what style you practice in, I don't care. Do you practice Tai Chi? Do you practice, is it Kalariput or Kalaripyat? I don't know. The martial art from India, as memory serves, and Malaysia. Are you a Thai boxer? Are you a Kung Fu martial artist? Do you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? How about Sambo? Study, learn, and love. The martial arts is first and foremost, it's a passion. It is a walk through life It is something that enriches and enhances your life. And in point of fact, if you find yourself in a school where it's not feeding your soul, so to speak, where being in the school, you're being bullied, or the instructor's a jerk, or whatever it might be, and you're not the cause of the instructor being a hard person to deal with, because we all know Matt bullies too, then you need to find a school that's going to, make you excited to get up, to get going. Remember, this is a martial art. This is a passion. This is something that gets you excited every day. You get up, you get moving, you train, whatever it is, get up and do it. And if you do, it's going to contribute so much to your life. And I'll tell you this, as a Christian, the more you learn something like the martial arts, not necessarily the martial arts, but something like that, the calmer you're going to feel, because you have an outlet of expression that will enhance your faith and your approach to life. It will not replace these things because nothing comes before God. However, it will enhance everything. These systems were given to us for a reason. They're a heritage. They're a means of fitness, of self-defense. They're a means of community. They are a rewarding way of life. And when used properly, they'll do nothing but enhance every aspect of your life. Imagine if you're an angry fellow, and if you start training in boxing, and every day you go to the gym, and instead of putting your anger all over everyone around you, you work out your anger on the bag. Can you imagine for a minute the benefits that you personally will receive, not just with your work, but with your family, if all of a sudden you drain all of that anger out of your body and put it in a constructive environment where you're working to become healthier, where you're building connections with other human beings, where you are safely releasing these pent-up emotions? Isn't that a better thing than, taking it out on everyone else around you and being an angry person? I think so. As long as you don't become the very bully that you're so upset about or afraid of in some cases. And we all know that guy who has to throw his weight around, treat people like crap. And it's toxic to your heart, it's toxic to your soul. It treats people as if they are less than who they are. And martial arts, if anything else, is always taught, regardless of style, to have respect for other people, to be kind to other people, to be disciplined, to have self-control when you deal with yourself and others. And that alone, that alone, even if you learn nothing else but that, would be enough. So that's it for part 2. I might do a part 3, but I need to think over what it is that I want to really say in part 3. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys later.